Hello and welcome to the ID Talk podcast. My name is Tony Bitzionis, and I'm here with my good friend and my co-host, Mr. Alex Perala. Alex, hello.
Hello, Tony.
Hello again. Today we've got a great guest, somebody that we've been following in the industry for a while, and we're really excited to get a chance to sit down and talk with him. Chris Kelly, president of Delinea. Chris, welcome to the show. To get us started, why don't you just give our audience a rundown of yourself, your own background in the industry, and how you came to be at Delinea?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's good to see you both again. So, as you said, Chris Kelly, I've actually been in the tech industry for a long, long time, 30-ish years. I started my career, and over 25 of that has been in and around cybersecurity. So, I discovered cyber very early on in my career, and it was really a calling to me. So, it's been a very exciting to watch the world change and evolve, and that's largely why I enjoy it so much. Is there's never it never stales. There's always a new adversary. There's always something new, and truly beyond a job, I feel a sense of purpose in the work that we do because we are out there trying to defend and protect people, companies, nations, etc. So that's kind of how I've got into security. Delinea specifically was interesting. I actually worked for our largest competitor because I found out very early on that, and I got on the identity security bandwagon very early on, that identity is the new battleground. And so being able to go and tackle that and jump on arguably the fastest growing part of the one of the fastest growing markets was a clear interest of mine. And then as I did more research on Delinea, just understanding our technology, our vision, and the culture, it was kind of a no-brainer. So I've been here just under a year and a half and super excited. It's, they say it's, the honeymoon is nowhere from close to being over. It's really exciting and fun to watch it morph over time.
That's good to hear, and it makes sense that you would sort of be compelled by Delinea's expertise in cybersecurity. On that note, like today, we're mostly going to be talking, I think, about the identity security report that Delinea just put out. So maybe we can just start with some of the interesting top line stuff that came out in that report. I have these stats in front of me here. So this is a crazy finding. 87% of IT decision makers said they felt prepared for AI-driven automation. And then 46% of the same organizations polled in that said they had some deficiencies in their identity governance around AI. So that's like an obvious, serious gap. Where does that come from? How do you account for that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, the gap comes down to we'll call it human nature applied to technology. When you ask someone, "Are you prepared?" They answer based on intent. And then when you ask someone, "Can you govern it?" Now you're talking about the reality of that. And so they're two very different questions. What I hear from customers all the time is we've got an identity program. So we've got MFA, we've got Vault for our passwords, and that's true, and that's good, and that's you should have that, and that's great for humans. But then when you start to ask them about AI agents and service accounts and automation pipelines, that confidence drops fast. And so when we say 87%, they say, yeah, they're thinking about the yesterday's problems that we're dealing with in a human environment. That 46%, they're reacting to today's real-time problems. And so, I think an interesting stat underneath that, I mean, this report encompasses, we've talked to 2,000 IT leaders that are already deploying AI, and 9 out of 10 of them admitted identity visibility gaps in that. And so for me, the takeaway is really simple. Prepared and governed are not the same things. Being prepared means you have the infrastructure. Being governed means that you know every identity, what access it has, what happens when it's done using a resource. And for that second part is where, almost everyone, if not everyone, has work to do.
Yeah, and just as a quick like follow up on that, uh, I feel like it partly must just be a function of the speed that AI is progressing at. It's an
Mhm.
area that I follow closely, more closely than like anyone I know.
Mhm.
Um, and if no one ever asked me if I'm prepared for AI security, but like my answer would definitely be no. Like I absolutely not. I'm not, you're not, no one is. So like do you think it is simply a function of speed, or is it like are there other factors that are important that are in play there?
Look, speed is the accelerant, obviously, of the underlying issue. I mean, we're changing the way that we're doing business and we're empowering things and creating identities at such a rapid rate, to your point. And they are identities. In the past, it was a human was the identity, or a system was the identity. Now we're actually creating agents that have an individual identity of their own. And so that proliferation is incredible. I mean, I was at the RSA conference a couple of weeks back, and I do a bunch of executive meetings, and probably did 30 meetings over the course of a few days. And when you start to ask people, one, are you prepared? There's nobody like yourself that would say yes, absolutely. It is happening so fast. And then they're like, well, tell us about what you can do for us. Tell us the roadmap. Like, where are you going to go? And I said, what is a roadmap to you? And they said, well, tell me the next 2 years. I'm like, well, okay, no, because if I asked you 2 years ago to write me the roadmap of today, could you in any way have predicted where we would be today? And they all look at each other like, fair point. And so we have to live in kind of these shorter term burst increments of time because it is evolving so fast. And every company, every vendor out there is really out there tackling this. And that evolution is going to be something we learn together. So, yeah, to answer your question more succinctly, the volume and the speed with which things are happening is unprecedented. And so that's the race and the challenge that we all have in front of us.
Mhm. That's neat. I'm glad you put it that way because, you said yourself you've been in the industry for a long time and you've watched it evolve and you've watched it change. And Alex and I have been in the industry for a while now too, and it is something that it it's hard to miss how quickly things are changing. And
Yeah.
I've said this before, but just on this show over the last year and a half to 2 years, we've been talking about AI and Alex, yeah, Alex pays attention to this stuff more than anybody that I know. And he has kind of like introed me to some concepts that he has said, agentic AI, like watch out for this. This is a thing. And then weeks later, everybody's talking about it. And so it is cool for me to like kind of constantly be learning about these terms. And the report uh, mentions shadow AI. And while
Mhm.
I could probably hazard a guess as to what that is, can you just go into a little bit more detail about that? Because I
Sure.
want to say it sounds neat, but I'm sure it's horrifying and I'm going to hate it.
I mean, neat. Yeah, horrifying is arguably probably what most security personnel would think of it. But yeah, I get your point. When you think of shadow AI, it's the evolution of shadow IT. And so, it's what do you not know that's going on in your environment? The nuance is it's happening so much faster, to Alex's point earlier, and it's a lot harder to see. So it's AI tools, agents, and models running inside your environment that the security team didn't approve, they didn't provision, and thus they don't know that they even exist. And so, and this isn't edge case stuff. I mean, 53% of organizations see this regularly. And the next obvious question is so why is that dangerous? With shadow IT, there's a human behind it. With shadow AI, you've got an agent acting on its own. So
Right.
it's accessing systems, it's taking action, and nobody's watching it. So now here's where the gap matters. Like 79% of people that responded said that they can detect it. I actually question that. They can detect some things, but how are they detecting all of it? I would wager to guess no, but that's fine. But even within that 79%, only 28% said they can do it in real time. So that's a 50%, 50-point gap between whether they can detect it and can they do it as it's happening. And that's where those breaches live.
Right.
Like, honestly, the scariest version isn't like some rogue chatbot. It's a legitimate AI project that's put into production in the network with services accounts that nobody's documented. And then lo and behold, 6 months later, the team's moved on, but that credential didn't. That credential is still active and live. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, and
Yes.
that goes to the whole like agentic issue in particular. I know the report, I don't have the exact stats for this, but I remember reading in the report that the like already, I think it said like a year ago, agents outnumbered human workers by like
Oh.
40 to 1, and then in the course of a year it doubled to 80 to 1 or something like that. So um with that many agentic like threat vectors in an enterprise setting, like is there a way to adapt legacy identity like IAM security stuff to
Hmm?
that, or is it like we just don't need whole new solutions?
Um, yeah, look, I think the honest answer is legacy IAM isn't broken, right? It was just built for a completely different world, as we've just been discussing. So it was designed for humans. You log in, you authenticate, you authorize, and then someone audits it. That works when you have thousands of employees, hundreds of thousands of employees. You can do it. It's not easy, it's not clean always, but it works, and we live in it every day. It breaks when you have millions of machines identities, right? So, like, if you ask most CISOs today, can you inventory every identity in your environment? If they're honest, the answer is no. Not because they failed, but because the problem is scaling faster than the tools. I mean, again, back to your theme, Alex, on speed, it really is. So, I think the gap is what matters. So, if 82% say that they can discover non-human identities and 30% say they know what they're doing, 30% we see, 30% we understand, that's a big risk. That's another big delta of differentiation. And so trying to retrofit, legacy tools for that is somewhat analogous to, upgrading a building for earthquake safety that was never designed for it. Like, there are
Mm.
things that you will do and you should do and you can do and they will get better. But what you need to do is really look at a more unified model where the humans and the machines and AI are all governed the same way. And that's kind of the evolution of, I think, where it's going. So it's not about throwing the old out and starting from scratch with the new. It's kind of figuring out how those pieces fit together, but then having a common, uniform way to look at it. And that's where I think some of the platformization that's happening with vendors, such as ourselves and others, is where it gets interesting and compelling. But every company is going to have a different journey. And so they're going to have to work within their own constraints, their own priorities, their own budgets. I mean, it's going to be a pick your own adventure journey for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean to that point, uh, seeing these issues with like statistics and
Mhm.
percentages put next to them kind of really, at least for me, it gives me like a different perspective on looking at these problems or these challenges as opposed to just like, ooh, scary things are coming and like, why are they scary? And like one thing that stood out was the report talks about standing access, and it's basically like a one-to-one, like those who say that standing access is necessary, it's like 74%, and then I think 73% say that it
It's a
increases,
risk.
or
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
risk. So it's like,
Yeah.
first of all, I guess what is standing access?
Okay.
And is that really the case? Is it necessary? Is it worth that risk? Because it seems like that's a pretty neck and neck race right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I'm glad you picked up on that because it's an interesting dynamic. So standing access is basically just always on access. It's like it's accessible because it has to be. Credentials were provided once and they were never revoked. And the reason that exists is removing it can break things. Simple as that. What it could break can determine on what it is and who needs it and who has access to it. And the tension comes from that 73% you say that say it's a risk or acknowledge it's a risk. And then there's the same number, or 74, even a percent higher, that say that they need it, right? These are the same people, right? So it is a real, they're opposite answers, and it's a trap. And like I would say, how it would show up is you've got a contractor that comes in and they've got a 6-month engagement for doing something with your company, and then they leave. That credential could still be active out there. It could still be active
Right.
in the systems. They're no longer here, but it is. Temporary credentials from a year ago, like somebody set up a temporary credential because they needed access to something and it just never got shut off. Pipeline access that nobody wants to touch. And really the driver is fear. So if you revoke something and production breaks for whatever reason at 2 in the morning, that can be a career defining moment. Like, what do you do and how do you react? And, the safer move is, oh, well, we'll do nothing. If my dad used to have a keychain, it said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And, grammatic issues aside, I think it's a very common thing for people to think about. But the
Yeah.
reality is people already know it's risky. Like
Yeah.
59% of them said that they don't have but 59% said they don't have a viable alternative. And that's the real problem. And that's where that just in time concept comes in. And it's something that we're really focused on, which is access only when needed, scope to the task. So what do you need the access for? Finite defined area, and then revoked immediately when it's no longer needed. So you don't
Right.
keep a standing privilege. You don't have forgotten accounts that are out there that have been sitting there for 6 months, a year, 2 years, however long. So that's really kind of the ultimate answer that the industry is going towards, is that just in time, just the right amount, and then break it up when it's no longer needed.
That
This
makes a lot of
is,
sense.
yeah, it's really resonating for me because of some technical stuff that we've been working on at ID Tech lately. Because, we're a couple of media guys. Tony and I each have a modest technical background in coding and web development, but we
I just
are
rolled my eyes
we
really
we
hard.
are
Yeah, I was gonna, well, you're better. Both of you are better than I then, because I have no history in coding.
but we are media guys, but we have this project we were launching for ID Tech, which is a learning center that's meant to be a AI focused resource, and it involves like building a lot of highly technical things that we've needed help with, because we're trying to make it's not primarily something for humans to read. It's something
Mhm.
for machines. So I've had to relearn how to use GitHub, and how to authorize access to our GitHub. And it's always scoping. It's always like,
Real world, right? That's
yeah,
exactly, you're living it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's defining the scope is so heavily prioritized in how the security is set up for that. So that resonates. Hopefully, I didn't lose too many of our listeners
No,
going.
well, you didn't lose me, because that's exactly the crux of what we're talking about, and it's a real world problem that every one of our customers and people face.
Yeah, and sticking to these like conceptual terminology things that we kind of should be unpacking for people. Another thing that stuck out from the report was going from this concept of least privilege to least permissive autonomy. Can
Mhm.
you unpack that? What does that
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of somewhat, you teed it up perfectly. I mean, the easiest way to think about it is maybe how you manage people. So when you hire someone, you don't just give them access. You define what they own, what they can decide, and when do they need approval, right? So that's the management of it. Least privilege, that's the badge and the login, right? So that's, here you go, you can get in. Permissive autonomy, that's the job description that you talked about. And AI agents need the same thing as a human does. So right now, most organizations stop at the access. This agent can reach this database. But 80% of them can't explain why a non-human identity took a privilege access once they do have access, because nobody's defined what it's allowed to decide on its own. And so that example that you gave is actually a perfect example. It's like the definition of this and being very clear about it is the big thing. So then it becomes three real questions, not just what can it access, but also what can it do without asking? And then what needs to be escalated and where? And that's really how you balance the speed and the control. And obviously, the speed, as we've established multiple times now, is such a factor because of the speed with which things are working, the efficiencies that we gain, all of the benefits of it. And with that comes that risk and that potential for things to go sideways. So it's absolutely critical to define and be clear about that to get control of it.
Completely makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think like we've touched on it so many times. It's the speed and just the rate that everything changes and will continue to change. I mean, we've seen it happening and it's getting more intense, but I don't think anyone expects this to let up anytime soon. And I guess like the key is,
The,
reports
the
like the
cat or the genie is out of the bottle, or
the
whatever you
genie's
want
out
to
of the
say.
bottle. Yeah.
You're not putting the toothpaste back in. I mean, all the different
Yeah.
things. It's not going to slow
Right.
down.
So I mean, like the report is so valuable because, for me at least, because of this, like taking concepts and attaching percentages to them and kind of helping me personally understand the scope or the importance of some of these, issues that are being presented and that are changing. If I was a CISO and I was reading this report today, what would you recommend? Like what sort of action would I
Mhm.
just be like, I must do everything in here? Like this is, my job is on the line. I need to stay ahead of this thing, or is it about kind of accepting that you need to be nimble and just ready to adapt?
I mean, look, as I said before, your mileage may vary in terms of every environment's different, but things that I would say is to be practical and focus on a few things. First, the most important thing is discover what you don't know. Like
Right.
how do you triage or solve or fix or protect if you don't know what is all out there in your environment? Non-humans, you probably have that. Look at the machine identities, look at the service accounts, look at the AI agents, and really understand the environment that's out there. If that's not in your inventory, it's not in your control. It's just that simple, right? I think second would be tackle that standing access. But don't feel that you need to boil the ocean because depending on your environment, that could be, I mean, again, this we're talking years of potential things to unpack. Pick your top 10 most privileged identities and move those into that just in time this quarter. Like go tactically, go do that and make sure that that's taken care of. And then, start with where the risk is the highest because that's, it's, why do people rob banks? Because that's where the money is. I mean, it's age old, but it's true. And then third, I would say, going back to you asked the question about the shadow AI, I would really get ahead of that. As we noted, 53% of the people are already seeing it. Your teams are using AI, whether you approve it or not. Hate to
Right.
break it to you, it's a fact of life. And
Mhm.
certain people are using it at a higher rate in more risky ways or not. And so you need to get ahead of that. And the choice doesn't, or isn't rather, whether to allow it or not. It's whether to govern it or how to govern it. Um, at the end of the day, identity security isn't just about employees anymore, as we've said multiple times on this. It's every identity touching your systems. It's the machines, it's the humans, it's the AI. And so, again, if you can't see it, you can't control it, you can't govern it. And that's where you're going to have to put a plan around it and take off digestible bites along the way. Keep reducing the risk. I mean, security is all about reduction of risk. So as I said, start with things that are the most vulnerable or most risky, and then just start weaning it down and track that. And that's what a CISO does. I mean, they start, they're supposed to anyway, is to start reducing that risk and knocking it off because you can't do everything overnight. It's just impossible.
Makes
Yeah.
sense to me. Alex, do we have a CISO?
I
I
think
think it's
you're the
Alex.
CISO.
Is it me? Oh no. Okay. Well, I'm glad I was part of this conversation.
Yeah, I would add to that. look for an abundance of M dashes in emails you get from your employees. That's how you'll know very
And
quickly.
utilizes.
If
Yeah.
if they're utilizing AI, you'll find the M dashes.
It's amazing to me. The worst perpetrator is are people on LinkedIn. And I just
Mhm.
watch this and I go and
Yeah.
I'm like, the minute I see it, I stop
Yeah.
reading. I just
Yeah.
refuse. I'm like, if you're that lazy that you can't even remove that,
Yeah.
and it's interesting. I'm totally off topic. I was down visiting my son in college this weekend, and I was talking to some of his friends, and the proliferation of AI in college is, as you would
Everywhere.
imagine, it's
Yeah.
everywhere. And the problem that I see with it is they're not teaching the kid, they're teaching the kids how to use to not be discovered that you're using it, not teaching them how to use it. And
Right.
so it's all these kids are very proficient at skirting the
Yeah.
detection of it, which is, I mean, I was mind-numbing. I talked to him and I started thinking, I'm like, how much am I paying for the school? Like, wait a second. Anyway, I digress. I
No,
apologize.
that's a great, I mean, that's it's so important for everyone to figure out how to use the technology in a smart way.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's I mean, I can't blame like university administrators for not knowing what to do at this stage, but um if you want to test people's knowledge without AI, you need in-person tests on pen and paper,
Yeah,
and everything else needs to be like, okay, here, like, let's think about how to teach people to use it in a way that they're still thinking,
that's
which is
exactly.
very possible. Yeah.
I mean that is going to be where it is, and that's where we should be teaching them because it's the reality of the world that going forward. So when we see these job reports and people talking about, oh, there's these jobs are being cannibalized, it's like, well, what you're not seeing is the jobs that are being created as a result. And so being able to use and articulate, that's what when I said they should teach them how to use it. It shouldn't be you're penalized for using AI to help you with a paper. It should be how are you using AI to write this paper? And then what is your unique take on it? You know what I mean? It's like there
Yeah,
are
yeah.
ways to operationalize it and use it to teach them what the future could look like while not stifling their creativity and their, knowledge expansion.
Yeah, and likewise, steering us back to the topic at hand. I mean, I assume based on what you're saying that you probably agree that CISOs should be using AI as a security diagnostic tool or something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, it will be incumbent in that, and that is really, as we see the evolution of our technologies and how we bring it forward, it impacts the way that we create technologies and write our code. It impacts the way that we analyze and test that. It reflects the way that we support our customers and the way that they interact and troubleshoot things. And then, of course, how do we actually do the protection therein? And so all of that comes together and that's I mean, truthfully, it's somewhat of a renaissance from a cyber perspective because it's really exciting to see how fast it's moving. It's equally scary, but you have to, they will have to, and those that don't will get left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we only have a few minutes left, but maybe do you want to offer like a look at how Delinea tackles this besides issuing reports to scare the hell out of people? Like what like how does Delinea help customers deal with these issues?
I might contend that the report is designed to open people's eyes and
Yeah,
let them understand versus scare the hell out of them.
fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, like, let me just, I'll just give you just kind of the soundbite of who we are. I mean, Delinea is an identity security company, and we really believe that we have the identity security control plane so that enterprises can trust and manage that access, but not just for the people. Like as we've talked about at nauseam here, it's not just the people, it's AI as well. And I think one of the key differentiators that we really focus on is that we operate in real time. And so we're continuously discovering these identities, we're understanding that risk, and then enforcing that least privilege, that just in time access, so that people have when and where it's needed. And then, as I said earlier, it's gone after that. And we really do it across. We can do it. And this is what I think is another key differentiator in today's times and going forward, because we can do it on premise, in a data center, in a multi-cloud, and in cloud native modern, ephemeral environments. So, our goal is to help organizations move towards that zero standing privilege without breaking how their teams work or slowing their business down. In fact, quite the opposite, is speeding them up and giving them that confidence and that ability to execute and leverage the power of AI and machines while not impeding their ability to execute. And, like this isn't a multi-year transformation for us. I mean, we go out and start engagements and the customers see value in weeks, with fewer resources. And that's actually kind of the key. And people think of that as fewer resources. Well, that's fewer jobs. No, no, no. It's allowing you to focus your investment in areas so that you can do higher value work and all of that. So, we I'm here, of course, I'm biased, but I think we're really on the cutting edge of a lot of this exciting technologies, and we get to work with a lot of really incredible customers in all segments of the market and all corners of the world. So I like my job. It's fun, to say that.
Well
Well, it's
put.
important work. And as you can imagine, I really enjoyed this conversation. So always fun to talk to another AI nerd. I
Thank
think Tony enjoyed it too.
I loved it.
Tony,
So
you don't need to lie. It's fine. It's okay. My feelings won't be hurt. But I
uh,
just
I did lie.
appreciate you guys making the time for me and sharing the podcast with me. It's important messages, I think we all would agree. And I've really enjoyed getting to spend time with you guys. So thank you.
yeah,
Thank
likewise.
you.
Thanks for
Yeah.
joining the pod. Hope you'll be back.
I absolutely will. Take care.